We are now broadcasting. The Hangouts is on the air live, which means in any second here, there we go. One person is waiting. And I kept the Twitter open here so I can share this link out as soon as it starts going live, and now it is, and I can. We have somebody waiting on us.
Oh.
Get this copied. Welcome, whoever is waiting. We're glad you're here. This is the Critical Blast Telethon. And we have been telling people for a while that we're moving. We have to move. We have secured the location, or so we thought. It turns out that we have just been approved for the location, and they want the deposit on it now. 24-hour turnaround. And I have asked them if they would take what we had in earnest money, and they have said that they would gladly take the money, but that they would continue marketing the house. Which means that, if somebody else came up with all the money right then, we would lose the house. And as you can all hear, I am not in a house. I am in a hotel where I must use the downstairs conference area where people actually have conferences. In this case, it is a conference talking about building airplanes. Everybody here is from Great Britain and Germany. So I may end up muting my microphone a lot until we have other people involved. So I've got that up. I'm going to close the YouTube page now. Nothing is up except for my Google Hangouts. Welcome, everybody. In case you don't know the young gentleman in the corner down here, this is S.J. Mitchell from Critical Blast.
Hi, everyone.
And he is going to be the author behind one of the projects we're going to announce tonight as part of our Critical Blast Critical Telethon. So I'm going to, first of all, give the fashion show, because this is subtitled, Ask Me About My Comicsgate Agenda. Because, believe it or not, the Comicsgate people have been very, very friendly to us, so I don't mind being friendly to them. So I wear their shirt. And I'm going to now shut off my camera. And Steve, you're working on a book that we're going to put out in an IGG here and let people get behind, because it is a superhero project. But tell us a little bit about what makes this superhero different.
Well, what I wanted to do was bring a character that I think a lot of today's to what makes him different from everything we've seen is he's the type of hero where his heart is in the right place, but his mind isn't always in line with his heart. He's kind of a leap before you look character. He wants to do good things, but he struggles with focus, which sometimes causes more problems than it solves. But it's a fun ride.
So what are his basic powers then? Because if he's well, let's tell about the title of the book. The title of the book is Bulletproof, which should give us some kind of an indication that he's got perhaps an invulnerability issue.
Yes. He is in fact invulnerable. However, he does have his weaknesses, which are carefully scattered throughout the book. I I don't point them out. I don't make a big deal out of it, but if you're paying attention while you're reading, it'll give you an aha moment in almost a foreshadowing way. But invulnerability is his primary power. He doesn't really have anything else after that. He's not going to be lifting up cars or, punching holes through brick walls. He has a power that assists him with his leap before you look style of heroing. He gets put through a lot of situations where his power saves him from suffering the consequences of his mistakes.
I was going to say, being invulnerable is not exactly something that's going to help him learn from his mistakes, because he doesn't really have a whole lot of blowback, I guess. I mean, if you're invulnerable and you're not watching where you're going, you drop down an elevator shaft, you're not really going to care. You're going to say, oh, crap, that was stupid looking.
Yes. That being said, one of the things that I enjoyed about writing this story is any mistakes done to him are non-consequential, but he learns about how his actions affect the world around him.
So he's not getting hurt, but his actions might end up hurting other people.
That's correct.
Well, that sounds all kinds of cool. Is he the only person in his little universe, his superhero universe, that has these superpowers? Have people come before him that have done this?
I have hints of strange things that have happened with other people, other characters. They're not main characters. It's just kind of like asides, things happening in the background that might hint towards other people in this world having abilities. His best friend is a child prodigy who is, for all intents and purposes, extremely smart, way above his level genius. And some could say that's his superpower, is his level of intelligence. But yes, there's hints throughout the book.
Now the book is titled Bulletproof. Is that doesn't necessarily mean that's the name of the character, but is it the name of the masked identity of the character?
Yes. And I feel that the way he gets his name, I feel pretty confident that it's very cleverly done.
So it's sort of like, the guy who goes out and kicks ass is called Kick-Ass. And
right.
The guy who's just super is called Superman.
Yep.
Secret identity problems? I mean, I'm assuming this is, from what I read, this is a young high school kid.
Yes. He is in high school. He doesn't think identity is an issue until his friend Gene informs him that it's very important for him to be careful with his identity. Now, it's very meta in the sense that the main character, Cody, is very self-aware of superheroes from his own reading of comic books. And but it's that mentality where he just does things and not worry about the consequences. And so eventually, as the book progresses, he does realize the importance of concealing his identity.
So it takes his friend to tell him that you need to watch this. I'm reminded of the scene in Batman Begins where Michael Caine is telling Bruce Wayne that you should really think about wearing a mask and, protecting your loved ones. He's like, oh, you're talking about Rachel. He's like, actually, I was thinking of myself, sir.
Yeah, the protagonist in the book, he takes a lot of sage advice from his two friends, Gene and Callie.
So there's a team Bulletproof.
Yeah, you could say that. Gene is the brains. Cody is the action hero, and Callie is the voice of reason.
So this is a big, obviously, it's a learning curve chapter. This is where he finds out he's got these powers. Do we know how he gets the powers, or do they just start to manifest? Is there an atomic reactor exploding? He gets bit by a radioactive bullet?
Well, the powers manifest, and we are given clues but we don't know right away what the cause is.
Well, I happen to like the idea of a superhero getting his powers and having to learn them in high school because I think all the classic characters did that. Well, not all the classic characters, but I like the old school Superboy when he was starting to develop them in high school.
Peter
Having
Parker.
Peter Parker definitely was the next person I was going to mention here, and that's the big problem with the Spider-Man movies to me is that he can only be in high school for one movie because it takes so damn long to make a film that by the next time you see him, he's the next time we see Spider-Man, he's going to be married with children.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna try to take it a little slow. If for any reason somewhere down the line somebody approaches me with a movie deal, maybe we can start really young with the actor.
Yeah, I was amazed that they were able to pull it off with the Harry Potter franchise to get 7 movies out of them and still have the characters look as young as they did. We're going to come back and talk about Bulletproof more in just a second here. I'm going to turn the camera back on because I want to talk to the audience here about our real reason tonight, which is, of course, the telethon we're kind of doing here for the move. We need to find a place. We have found a place, and we need to be out of this hotel by mid-April. We have secured the house, but they are demanding a deposit within 24 hours, and we are $1,000 short. Yes, I know our Indiegogo and our GoFundMe says we're trying to raise $6,000. That's still true. We just need to get 1,000 of it now because obviously this is not a conducive environment to A, do business, and B, raise a family. And let's be clear, this is a family-based business. So when I talk about the business, I'm talking about me and my wife and my 11-year-old son looking for a place to actually get to live. So we've been doing the Indiegogo. We've got the Gods and Services on Amazon, and we've got several packages on Indiegogo. Tonight, because it has to be such a rapid fulfillment, we are going with the GoFundMe. However, I am going to state up front here that every GoFundMe that comes in tonight that's a $20, we're going to treat as an Indiegogo. We are going to return that person either a Continental Divide or a Bully Pulpit signed for every $20 that comes in. Let us know which one you want. I will take care of the shipment. Postage is included in that cost. These books are already done. So obviously you can see they're here. We don't have to publish anything. We don't have to say thank you for your contribution. Now 6 months later, we'll work on getting you something. That is not the purpose of this Indiegogo. This Indiegogo is to raise necessary funds based on things we already have. And yes, the GoFundMe is generally what we hear of often as e-begging. And yes, that's the point we've come to, but I'm still wanting to deliver a product for people who want to help us out here. So I wanted to show you that we have that. The GoFundMe link is listed in the description below. Please do hit that. And if you're just visiting here, please go ahead and hit the bell for notifications and subscribe. We have about 475 subscribers right now. Obviously, we'd do much better if we had 1,000 and YouTube would monetize us. And then we'd be able to do the super chats like all the big boys do. And that's where we want to get to with Critical Blast's YouTube channel sometime here, is to be able to bring you not only content on our website, but also on the YouTube side of the house. We've got some things to say. And Steve, you've made some videos in the past, and you've done a very great job of them. Steve is also the voice you'll hear on our podcast on anchor.fm. If you want to do a search on your favorite podcast provider for the Critical Blast podcast, where you've been talking, well, you were talking about Superman for a very long time, but now, as I take the camera back off, you've been getting involved in a video game. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing with that?
Apex Legends is a video game that was put out by Respawn Entertainment. They partnered with EA Sports, and for those who don't know, Respawn is the developer behind the great Titanfall series of video games. They've actually even have their games on apps that you can download for your tablet. But this game, Apex Legends, is a battle royale style game, very much in the vein of Fortnite. However, where Fortnite, the only thing different about the characters you use is the way they look. With Apex Legends, each character has a unique skill set that changes the landscape of the game depending on which character you choose and who your squad mates choose. So your team could be completely unique from another team running around the field, and it's last team standing wins. And it's such a great experience. It's a fun game. You can have fast matches. You can have matches that last up to 20 minutes. And the diverse characters of the game can allow you to run around the field invisible, drop gas canisters that poison people, do smoke bombs so you can hide, put up dome shields so you can protect your teammates, drop healing drones so you can help heal your teammates. There's just so much about this game that everybody can find a character that'll fit their play style.
That sounds very good because it sounds very addictive, actually. I'm glad I'm not as much of a gamer as I used to be. Right now, I'm still trying to get past some Candy Crush. But
yeah, this game is very addictive, and
it's very popular.
It is. It actually broke Fortnite's records for a number of players in the first week. And within the first month, it hit 50 million players. This game is breaking records, and while they're in a little bit of a down, kind of like they're a little down on who's streaming the game right now. For a while, they actually were beating Fortnite for Twitch streams, but people are eager for season 1 to drop because right now we're kind of like in a beta phase. So people have played the game for about a month and a week. And season 1 they're releasing a battle pass where you can get special packs for skins and unlock new characters. And there's just a lot of exciting things that are going to happen. So as people are kind of, waiting for that battle pass in season 1 to drop at the end of this month, I think a lot of people have gotten their fill, but the game is still thriving. There's still a lot of new players finding the game.
Everybody who's just arriving, Steve's been talking about Apex Legends. He is doing podcasts for Critical Blast. If you want to look up the Critical Pod Blast, you will be able to find those there. And of course, if you have any questions, you should be able to put them in our chat stream here, and he'd be happy to answer them on the next podcast. I know he's looking for some feedback on that. We have chatter Catherine Dustheimer asks if there's a link to the GoFundMe page. Yes, Catherine, in the description of this video, we should have a link to the GoFundMe. If you don't see that, please let me know, and I will try to get that taken care of. I thought that was put in there before we started. Steve, do you see the description? Are you looking at the video there?
I am looking at the video on YouTube, and I actually don't see a link in there.
Okay, then that's a problem. I will have to address that. While I'm taking care of that, Steve is also here because we are going to start an Indiegogo soon here for his new project, Bulletproof. And that is the superhero. And we've talked about who the main character is and his friends and his abilities and how it's going to be a learning curve of him getting used to these abilities. But of course, every hero is defined by the villain he has to face off against. Is there a worthwhile villain in this universe that you'll be pitting him against?
There's actually 3 villains. One is very obvious. Another one is typical of a teenager in high school. And the third one is himself.
Now that sounds interesting and ominous. So he's his own villain. Well, and of course you kind of alluded to this with the fact that he's a look before you leap kind of guy. Can he actually do damage to himself?
He can't really do damage to himself, and that's where a lot of the problem stems from, because he doesn't really consider the consequences of his actions because he's virtually immune to them. However, the people around him are the ones that tend to suffer the most, and it's a great learning curve. And I feel it's a strong characteristic to show him develop and work through this and learn from some of the mistakes that he's made and some of the things that he's done that he didn't realize, and the reader doesn't even realize that they were mistakes at the time.
So we'll definitely be watching every step he takes to say, oh, he's going to pay for that later, which is great because you want, I like books that have callbacks to things that happened earlier in the book, not necessarily earlier in a series, because that requires that you go out and get another book. But if it's something that happened within the same context of what you're reading now, it's easy to go back and say, oh, I didn't see that was happening when that happened.
Yeah, and in this book, if it reads the way I wrote it, it should move pretty quickly. Again, the protagonist is the type of character who has attention problems, and that's noted throughout the entire book. And I think it plays to teens that might have similar issues, and they'll probably really relate to the character. Things move at a very quick pace, and he often finds himself aloof, sometimes not paying full attention to what's happening around him because his mind tends to wander.
Now, is his mind wandering? Does he have a problem? I mean, like attention deficit, or?
Yeah, it's never defined, because I feel a lot of people in today's world feel the way that he does, but don't have an explanation for it. It's not something that everybody goes running out to the doctor to get diagnosed with ADHD or some hyperactivity disorder. But I think he's going to connect with a lot of people in the sense that he has this issue that he's dealing with. He doesn't know why. He gets frustrated by it. And while it never gets defined, I think people will relate to that because there are a lot of people out there, a lot of people that I know that always say, if I went to a doctor, I'd probably be ADHD. But nobody tends to go, especially when they get into their adult life. They've just been dealing with it.
Yeah, well, I think we all have a certain degree of it. I know I'm the first one to look at a squirrel when it runs across the windowsill. Catherine, thank you very much for letting us know that link was not there. That link should be there now. I've edited it and saved the video description, so you get a refresh on that. You should be able to see the link. Appreciate being notified of that. One of the other things I've also got going on here, I'm going to share the screen here for a moment, which is always fun. Let me get it done up here. I've got an item that I am auctioning off, or going to put up for auction, and that would be, there we go, this little item here. Just bring that up to full size if I can. This is Green Lantern number 40. It's in fine to very fine condition here. This line is, obviously you can see it extends beyond the book. That's not part of the comic book. That's part of the reflection in the glass. This is artisan framed. It's sealed in there. It's behind museum glass. And it is the first mention of the Crisis. This is the secret origin of the Guardians. This is the first time in DC Comics that you meet the Guardian named Krona. The first time that you see him witness the creation of the universe. The first time you see that glowing blue hand holding the cluster of stars that has been at the root of things like Crisis on Infinite Earths, that has been seen in Infinite Crisis and Zero Hour. It's the this is where it all began. Yeah, the Flash of Two Worlds definitely introduced us to the multiple Earths context, but this explains why we had multiple Earths in the DC universe. You can see the colors are very vibrant on that. It's in great condition. I paid $200 for the book several years ago. I paid probably another $200 on the framing job because I wanted it to look great for you guys. Well, I want it to look great for me. Now it's going to look great for somebody else if we can sell it off. So that is one of the things we're going to take care of. Stop sharing the screen now. And we're back. So if anybody is interested in that, we are going to take some bids on that. Caveat on that, because I am in a hotel, all my stuff is in storage. So the move is happening April 19th. It has to happen April 19th. And within that week, I'll be unboxing everything. So whoever wants that has to do that with the understanding that I will be shipping it to them at the end of April. So there's a month gap there that's just unavoidable because I've gone to the storage unit and I've dug through there and I just cannot get deep enough. It's a whole house in a storage unit, so I can't get to the back where it obviously must be in one of my office boxes. So what else should we talk about, Steve? There's been a lot going on in comic books and in entertainment industry.
One thing that I've been keeping an eye on is the return of Cyclops at with the X-Men in the Marvel universe. I think in today's world of the word bigotry and racism being thrown around, I think the X-Men have a very important role to play in comic books, and bringing back Cyclops, who was the field general and natural born leader of the X-Men. I think that it'll be a very good idea for Marvels to kind of shelve the Avengers nonsense for a little while and bring the X-Men to the forefront. And I think with this Disney Fox merger and them gaining control of the mutant properties, I think that Disney's really going to be able to push the X-Men in today's political climate. I think it's going to be very beneficial, and I'm excited because the X-Men got me into comic books. So it'll be nice to see them kind of take center stage if all goes well.
Yeah, I was going to say with the Disney merger with Fox and them getting their hands on the X-Men, as well as the Fantastic Four, we should see those characters start to appear in the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And if that happens, then I think comic shops have already taught us that the books don't sell if the movies are different characters. When Michael Tierney comes on here, he's the comic shop guy. He'll be on again this Saturday rather, in the afternoon, talking about the state of the industry, what's been selling, what's been not, and his statement, and he's mentioned it as well in the Overstreet Price Guide because he is an Overstreet contributor, is that the thing that stopped sales last year, and he specifically attributed to what's been called the SJW politics movement, because people would come in after Thor and say, "Hey, I just saw the Thor movie. I want to buy the book." And they're like, "Well, here it is, but no, that's a woman." He's like, "Well, that's what Thor is now." No, that's not right. Well, let me get Captain America. Well, here he is, but he's a Nazi at the moment. That doesn't work. He's not the character in the book. Let me get Iron Man. We saw Iron Man in Avengers. Well, here's Iron Man, but he's actually a teenage girl right now. That doesn't work. So if there's no consistency between what's in the book and what's in the movie, the books can't enjoy what should be watershed overflow bucks from interest from people who saw the films. So likewise, I think that's going to happen with X-Men. Hopefully, to get the classic X-Men lineup, we should get that back in the comics.
Yeah, I would love to see the original 5 X-Men in a movie together. Probably will never happen, simply because Wolverine is too much of a valuable commodity. As much to my dismay, as being a big fan of Cyclops, Wolverine's always been a character that's been a big pain in my side. I hate seeing him being kind of pushed out in front, but they got to do whatever they can for marketing, and if they're going to use him, although to your point, using characters in the movies that aren't in the comic books, there's speculation that they may not try to replace a male Wolverine simply because of Hugh Jackman being such an iconic figure in that role, that there's speculation that they could go with X-23 as Wolverine, which I think could be a big mistake.
Surely they can recast Wolverine with another male actor. I mean, we didn't stop Superman movies just because Christopher Reeve died.
Well, that's true. That's true. I think the idea of them, I feel like they would want to push forward X-23 as the new Wolverine, just for more of that female star power. They can get somebody in, they'll have a new female actor to put center stage. They can put her in that primal state, and the story would probably be all about getting her to realize who she is and making her into the potential hero that she could be. And that would, I feel, be detrimental to any X-Men story, because it would not focus on the main issue of equality. It would focus more on, look, we've got this new female superhero we all want you to come see.
Well, that trick never works, right?
No.
But if they're going to do that, if they're planning to do that, it would seem to be counterintuitive to their whole plan of having Wolverine return in the first place, because they made such a huge deal of that, and they made too much of a deal of that. Actually, they made it by way too many books to get to the point where here he is. This could have been like 80-page giant, and we'd have bought the hell out of it.
Yeah. No, they made a much bigger deal about the return of Wolverine than it probably needed to be. But you go with what sells, and just like with Batman, as long as people keep throwing money at anything with his name on it, they're going to keep putting it out there.
One of the problems that I can see with the X-Men that you don't have with the Avengers or with the Fantastic Four is that it's a team that doesn't have people who can stand on their own. And what I mean by that is, with the Avengers, you had a Captain America movie, you had an Iron Man movie, you had a Thor movie. So people got to know these characters as individuals before they got all teamed up together, even though they got teamed up with people who haven't had their own movies yet. With the Fantastic Four, yes, it's a team, but the whole team is a unit that got their powers all at the same time. They were a family. But the X-Men have all been recruited from different corners of the world because they were mutants and they needed a place to go. So I don't know how the movie people, obviously they've done it. There have been X-Men movies out there. But if they're going to reboot the whole thing, do they have to be able to tell everybody's origin? Will they focus on, Professor X and Jean Grey and that little relationship while everyone else is kind of tangential? Or will they focus on Scott and Jean Grey? Because everybody can't get center stage in a team movie like that.
Well, absolutely. And I think the more characters you add to the mix, which is necessary to tell a good X-Men story, you do struggle with the concept of trying to explain away everybody's powers. But I think in today's climate of movies, you don't have to do that anymore. I think most general audiences, they see a movie, they watch the trailer, and they're like, oh, they have powers. Okay. I don't know that everybody's really that interested in learning every single character's origin story. We can only watch Kal-El's ship crash into Earth so many times. We can only watch Bruce's parents get shot so many times. We can only watch Uncle Ben get shot so many times. For the X-Men, you have such a diverse cast of mutants. I think just by virtue of them having a mutant gene is enough for people to accept the fact that they have powers and not need to know that Scott Summers was thrown out of a plane, that I'll name any random mutant and what their backstory is. And I don't think that general audiences are really going to be that interested right off the bat.
Yeah, we were able to watch Justice League, and while we had seen Man of Steel, we had seen Batman show up in Suicide Squad, and definitely in Batman versus Superman, and we saw Wonder Woman. But we didn't need to know Aquaman's origin or the Flash or even Cyborg, even though we got a little bit of Cyborg's origin. The other two guys were just, here we are, and this is what we do. And we'll get movies later. And Aquaman did actually fairly well coming in with a origin story after we saw him rather than before he joined the Justice League.
Yeah, it played off as kind of a prequel, and I think that works. I think if you do an ensemble movie and people see all these characters, the audience will drum up the interest. The audience will say who they want to know more about, and that's fodder for the studios to say, all right, well, now we know which character to do a solo movie on, and that could be a prequel. That could be an exploration of their origin if it turns out that character stands out from the crowd.
Which which is something that DC desperately needs right now, I think, because it doesn't seem like they have the they make bank, but they don't seem to have the enthusiasm, it seems, behind their movies that the Marvel movies get. And I'm not quite sure what they can do to get that. I mean, what is it about the DC universe on film that doesn't get the same attractive press that the Marvel universe gets? Because first of all, they were first, and their characters are at least more iconic and more recognizable. Given, just look at the fact that when the MCU started off, they were going with their second tier heroes. Nobody cared about Iron Man, and that's what led the whole thing off.
Yeah, my theory of this is pretty basic. It's very right on the surface, snappy one-liners. People can talk about a movie, they can break it down philosophically, much like they do with Batman v Superman, all day, every day. Man of Steel was put out in 2013. There are still people talking about that movie and debating whether or not it was good or whether it was a good Superman story. But those snappy one-liners, that's what gets people talking. That's what keeps the movies memorable, and that's what drums up the viral interest. You look at all the Marvel movies, they're action comedies, and it's those snappy one-liners that people will always go back to and quote. And you have people at the office, hey, remember when he said this? Remember when he said that? Oh my gosh, that was so funny. And their version of it is terrible, but it keeps people talking because they can quote the movie. And it's like the Princess Bride syndrome. People still quote that movie.
Well, we quote Batman versus Superman too, but we only quote, why did you say that name?
Yes, Martha. Martha is the one thing that people quote from that movie.
But you know what? We have fun with it. So did you see Aquaman? What did you think of that?
I did see Aquaman, and I think I thought it was amazing. I thought it was such a great movie, and I thought that it built off the momentum of Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman. And Aquaman he had so much charisma. Jason Momoa brought so much to that role. I think he's really developed as an actor. I mean, when he appeared on Game of Thrones, he was eye candy. That's all he was. He was eye candy. He barely even had any speaking lines. He was there shirtless for the muscles and for the eye candy. And you look at him in Aquaman and the level of charisma that he just commands a scene, and he's just that big, dumb oaf that you just want to pal around with. And it's a far cry from who he is in the comic books. And I think they made the right choice because he's just so much more likable as the big muscle head who doesn't take anything seriously.
Yeah, he's got a very I don't know if they're getting drunk now. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly here, but he's got a very Leonard Skinnerd kind of take to him here that just resonates with me. And I'll tell you where else it's resonating here. And DC really, Warner Brothers really got behind the ball on this one. Is my wife is the long-suffering comic book widow, who hasn't liked any comic book movie since Spider-Man, and I'm talking about the first one. Not Nicholas Hammond first one, but the upside down kissing Spider-Man. She liked that one, and she also liked Incredible Hulk. Go figure. But nothing else since then has she really cared to see. She didn't want to see any of the Batman versus Superman. I told her she should watch Wonder Woman. She'd like that. She just doesn't care for it. Not her thing. She's wears pink and a bow in her hair, and that's my wife. But are you getting Aquaman? Are we going to be reviewing Aquaman? I'd like to see Aquaman. I'm like, why do you want to see a guy who talks to fish? He doesn't have that great of a superpower. But we are getting Aquaman being sent to us. Should arrive this week for review purposes. So we will have a review of Aquaman on Critical Blast. We already have our review of Mary Poppins Returns, which we've received. And no, I'm sorry. We are going to have that because I'm still in the middle of watching it. What we do have is our giveaway of a copy of Mary Poppins Returns, which is being brought to us through our friendly people who get us Disney movies. And they will also be shipping out a compact mirror with the movie, much like the one she shows. This one has digital messaging. Now, that's all it says in the description, is that it comes with digital messaging. I don't know if they're pre-programmed messages. I don't know if you can text from it. It just says it's a compact mirror with overlaying digital messaging. So you may open it up and it just says that you're practically perfect in every way. But if you would be interested in that, definitely go over to criticalblast.com. You'll see it on the front page there, and it's very easy to enter. All you have to do is click some buttons. You can just it uses your Facebook ID or your email address. Boy, that's probably why we don't have any entries today, because it uses your Facebook login.
Oh, and Facebook was down.
Facebook has been down, and you know what? It was still down right before I started this up here. So the Zuck is not happy right now.
Nope. The Zuckerman is definitely not happy. And you don't want to make him angry because he was played by Lex Luthor himself.
Oh, I know you love Batman versus Superman.
Yep.
And I liked Batman versus Superman. I would have loved Batman versus Superman if Lex Luthor had not been in it. And by that, I don't mean the character Lex Luthor. I mean that guy as Lex Luthor. playing that Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor, let's face it, he is a powerful presence. He is a alien xenophobe, which is why he's going to do so well on Supergirl, because that's his whole thing. And he thinks he's right. He thinks that he's saving Earth from an alien invasion. That's his whole reason why he hates Superman. It's not because he's like, oh, I'm jealous of the attention that he gets. No villain thinks of themselves as a villain. They think of themselves as the hero. And Lex thinks he's going to save us all because aliens are going to hurt us. But this gummy bear chewing, creepy pee in a cup, putting it on the senator's desk. It's such a juvenile, whiny Lex Luthor that no, this is not the villain.
Okay, first off, it wasn't a gummy bear. It was a Jolly Rancher, and it was cherry flavored. And the reason I remember that is because he looked at the senator and said, "It's cherry," which, if you look at the Urban Dictionary, means it's all good. So it was kind of a double entendre. The movie's very deep, and I will go for hours talking about it. But as far as Jesse Eisenberg being Lex Luthor, I thought he was a very good choice. He was a different choice, I will say, but I thought he was a good choice because he's not imposing, which shows how he feels threatened by people of power. Even other humans, he would feel threatened by people in power because he's not an imposing individual. And the guy who they cast to play Lex Luthor in Supergirl is none other than John Cryer, who I would say is also not a very imposing person.
I was going to ask you about the Supergirl edition of Lex Luthor. Now, when is that happening? That's got to be soon, but is it going to be like the end of season reveal, or is it going to be happening sooner than
this coming Sunday? He will appear for the first time on screen, if you don't count the little preview they put at the end of last week's episode.
Well, now you're going to make me go back and watch last week's episode, and I really don't want to because I've watched very little of Supergirl, but my drive to work, I probably shouldn't be saying this. My drive to work is there's no radio here that's worth listening to, and I like to listen to talk radio. So I listen to YouTube in the afternoons. I get that umbrella guy. He's my drive time radio home. But in the mornings, I'll bring up my CW app and I will listen to the episode. And okay, I'll sneak a peek at the screen. But I'll listen to last night's episode. And on Mondays, because I need something to get me the 30 minutes to work, I will throw up Supergirl. And this last one was literally throw up Supergirl.
Yeah, I was going to say that was very, very stated very well.
Oh, and I'd heard that it was very in your face with its politics, and I had seen previous episodes. I'm like, okay, yeah, that one gets a little judgy, that one gets a little preachy. Okay, We get it. You know, the aliens are this, the aliens are that. But this last one here, the fact that they're trying to the president is trying to put up a space wall against incoming aliens, and
Yeah,
and
they
what really got me.
they don't even try to hide it anymore.
No, they don't. I mean, and when Brainiac 5 tells her to join them in March, and he says, "Remember, stronger together." I literally yelled in my car. I'm like, "Oh my God, they can't get over the fact that they lost an election." But
Yeah,
the episode prior to that, Supergirl lied. And I know we've seen her lie in this last episode here where she's basically saying, hey, I left a war-torn planet and I'm a refugee. And we're like, as you wrote in your article, she's like, no, she's not. But the episode before that, when we see her point the satellite to a new location to save it from blasting the White House and then destroying it.
Yeah.
And telling the president there was no other way.
Yeah. Well, wait a minute. I thought a lot of detractors of Superman and Supergirl, they say that there's always a better way.
Well, nobody was hurt. There's only always a better way if you have to have something other than killing somebody. But this was just property damage of a small satellite, which one would think a Kryptonian could like just grab the center of and say, okay, I don't like this thing. I'm going to carry it around to the far side of the moon and let it orbit around here for a little bit, rather than blast it to pieces and say, oh, sorry, there was no other way.
Yeah, it's very frustrating to watch. And like I said in my article, which is up on criticalblast.com right now, I can't tell if they want Supergirl to be a liar or if the writers just think we're all stupid. What are they trying to do by making her act so out of character? This is not the Kryptonian way. This is not what we're used to seeing from Superman. And to be honest with you, maybe that's why they shipped him off of Earth, because I think he'd be pretty pissed off to see his cousin acting the way she is.
You know what? I was very unhappy with the way that they shipped him off to Argo City. I get the fact that they're playing off the whole Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex thing, and Lois has to be there to gestate the child. Hopefully she was there when she got pregnant, because if you've read Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex, she had more than just a pregnancy to worry about. The entire conception could have blown the top of her head off. But this gets me where I always see Superman as the Boy Scout, as the Kansas raised child of parents who taught the old fashioned kind of morals. And now in Superman Doomsday, which was an animated movie, and now in Supergirl, we have, and I know this is old fashioned of me, we have a Superman who is engaging in premarital relations with Lois Lane, and in Supergirl, he gets her pregnant before they get married. At least in Doomsday, she wasn't pregnant, but she didn't know he was Clark Kent either. He wasn't telling her who he was. He was taking advantage of that whole "I'm Superman," rather than letting her get to know who he is. But that's just me. That's not my Superman that would do something like that.
Yeah, it's very frustrating to watch. And if for those of you that don't have the time or access to an audiobook, just watch Mallrats and you'll understand the whole Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex thing. There's a nice scene in the Mallrats where they have that conversation. But I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan because the foundation of their entire relationship is built on a lie. Superman and Lois, she was in love with Superman, not Clark. He was lying to her about his secret identity for so many years. And you would think in a real world situation, when all that was revealed, they would both look at each other and be like, I can't trust you.
Well, that's the way it should be. But the best thing I saw about that relationship was in Lois and Clark. And I can't even remember the name of the villain now, Tempest, I think it was. said that Lois was remembered in his future time period as being one of the stupidest people in the world. And Carrie Hatcher's like, her jaw just goes slack. She's like, what? And he's like, let me demonstrate. And he gets a pair of glasses and he takes them off, and I was like, I'm Clark Kent. No, I'm Superman. No, I'm Clark Kent. No, I'm Superman. Duh.
It's genius. Now, see, that's good writing. That's good writing. Not with what they're doing on Supergirl, with them trying to fool us into believing we know nothing about Supergirl's history and why she ended up on Earth, and trying to make us completely forget that the first couple seasons even happened by having all the main characters not understand why anybody would ever be afraid of an alien.
Right, because all the aliens, have that's the whole reason Supergirl's here. She's been fighting aliens every week for the first 2 seasons, and now, of course, they're all the good aliens. We can't say that the bad aliens were somebody be locked up in the Flash's pipeline or something. But now we're getting the Legion of Superheroes basically in the present day. Have you kept up with the other CW shows?
I have. I've been keeping up on the Flash. I've been keeping up with Arrow, which that one they just announced that next season's going to be their last season, and it's going to be a shortened 10-episode season. And if you paid attention to this year's crossover, you can understand why it's only going to last 10 episodes.
Right. Now, in the Flash right now, they're saying that somebody's trying to get through the timeline. So they've already started that, something big. That's the thing that Eobard Thawne is mapping out in the future there, which would seem to be an obvious reference to the Anti-Monitor.
Yes. I would definitely think that they're building up to that. They definitely want to, if this is going to be Oliver Queen's big send-off, they are going to make it the event, and they will be dropping plot points and foreshadowing all the way up until that happens.
Okay, so Oliver Queen obviously is going to be the one who dies at the end of Arrow, because there has to be balance for whatever reason. There has to be balance. Do you think that at the end of Crisis, because it is Crisis, they gave us the logo and everything, title treatment, we know it's going to be Crisis on Infinite Earths. Do you think that Oliver's sacrifice changes the newspaper headline?
Yeah. I think that's a very good possibility. I hadn't thought about that before, but I truly think that that's a possibility. And what else I think is going to be a possibility is, because it's a Crisis of Infinite Earths, I highly believe that Supergirl will finally be merged into their world, especially with news of Cisco Ramon leaving the show. So their little handheld portals, I'm sorry, it's just not enough. So I think that by the end of next year's crossover, I like your theory. The newspaper headline will change, and Supergirl will be on Earth 1 or Earth Prime, whatever you want to call it. So that way, Earth CW, yes. So that way they can stop playing around with their little handheld portal.
Yeah, I hate the handheld portal. I even hate the fact that Vibe can teleport people somewhere, because that's so OP from the original Vibe. He's so overpowered. But it's not just that; it's that the fact that the Flash, he gets to places faster than the Flash does, and it's just because he's like, oh, I'm going to open a portal and step through. You go ahead and run there. I'll meet you there. But the Flash still remains my favorite of the CW series. It was when Flash first season came out, I was doing a panel at Archon in Collinsville, Illinois, and I talked about how DC was doing great television shows but couldn't get movies, and Marvel was doing just the opposite. This was obviously pre-Netflix, but I said, but they got their act all over the place. They've got Flash and Arrow on CW. They got Supergirl at the time was on CBS, I think.
Yes.
Hellblazer was on NBC. Gotham was on Fox. And I predicted right then that they were setting themselves up for a crisis on Infinite Networks. But now we brought Supergirl to the CW, and I think you're right. I think they're going to finally use this to merge her onto that Earth. And I think I would not be surprised if Arrow ends with episode 10, like they're saying, and we get a mid-season replacement of Batwoman.
Yes. Yeah, well, and they've talked about her show going, and I think she would be the one that fills in. Is that inaugural season kind of like a shortened, maybe 12 episode season, picking up after that halfway point where a lot of the shows take their breaks, and I think I could totally see that happening.
I think that's definitely got to be the reason why they introduced her in this last crossover too. But we did get allusions in that episode that there is a Batman on Earth Supergirl, because she talks about her cousin has had dealings with the Gotham City Guardian. Just didn't mention him by name, but we do know that Batman does exist, or did exist. Another pet peeve of mine is, CW likes to think of the Batman as a character who would abandon Gotham City for any reason at all. And this is not the first time seeing Batwoman taking over for a Batman who's deserted his post. We saw the same thing way back in the day, because I'm an old man, on the WB when they had Birds of Prey as a series, which was Oracle and Black Canary and Huntress. It didn't last long. But I thought it was a good series. Had some good music to it that they totally replaced on the DVD set. But again, it was, Batman's left, Alfred's still there, and we get one scene of Batgirl in costume, which was awesome. I lived for that moment. But I just can't get over the fact that Batman would leave. And I know they have to do it because it was always owned by the movie companies. He couldn't ever show up on television. I don't know why. They own the character, they own the network, they own the film. I'm sure it was the production company that they didn't own that had some rights to it. And hopefully with the DCEU stuff coming out, we get past that point. Gotham is wrapping up. We can bring a Batman character back into a CW type of universe, even if it's just for some sort of a crisis.
Yeah, and if you take into consideration the fact that this is Gotham's last season, that is another indication that with Batwoman coming next year, it would not shock me in the least bit if we get a jaded Bruce Wayne appearing on that show. Now, if you remember when we got Supergirl, it was just Supergirl. We had a Jimmy Olsen to give us that connection. But as time went on, they slowly started adding characters you never thought you would see on television, like Superman in costume. First time we've seen that since, I'm not counting Smallville. All he did was open his shirt. But since the Adventures of Lois and Clark, and now they brought in a Superman, and they're bringing in Lex Luthor. They're slowly bringing in these bigger characters. It would not shock me one bit with Gotham on Fox ending next season. Batwoman gets her inaugural season, and then eventually they bring Bruce Wayne in. I could see it happening.
Can you see them ever getting to the point of a Justice League series?
Oh, I don't know if they'd ever do a Justice League series, but as long as they keep doing those crossovers, that's where they'll do it. You could have Superman, Batman, The Flash. I mean, they're just the possibilities are endless. We have Martian Manhunter, so I mean that's almost the entire roster there. You just need a Wonder Woman and Aquaman.
This is true. Boy, it's getting late. We really need to wrap this up. This has been fun. We should actually do some sort of a geek talk thing on a regular basis here, just to talk about what happened on the CW, what's talking about in comics. We will get together and do that. Again, want to remind everybody, Steve is the author of Bulletproof, which is going to be our next Indiegogo project. We are going to be getting news up on that in the next couple of weeks here. First and foremost, the focus is going to be on Critical Blast Relocation. This is a family-based business. We are in a hotel. We need to be out of a hotel because it's a revenue negative situation, and the clock is ticking towards the second week of April on that. We have secured a house where we can get out of here and start having much cheaper rent, but they require that I have an extra $1,000 by tomorrow, or they will continue marketing the place. which doesn't necessarily mean I lose it tomorrow, but does mean that if somebody else shows up with the full deposit before I get the rest of it, I could lose the place, and I cannot have that happen. So please take a look at the GoFundMe. Again, remember, anybody who donates $20 to the GoFundMe has their choice of Continental Divide or Bully Pulpit. Both are the latest books in the Remo Williams The Destroyer series. They will come to you autographed. Just let me know where you want them sent and how you want them signed. I'll take care of that, including the postage on that. I have not looked at the GoFundMe tonight because I'm on an antiquated laptop. I can't keep track of any donations that have gone to that and speak into this microphone and not have it come out as Mr. Roboto or lose connection. But I do thank anybody who donated tonight, and we definitely appreciate your support. Please do hit the subscribe button and ring that bell for notifications so that you'll be notified the next time we're up. We actually do live streams on a fairly regular basis. We are not nearly as prolific as some of the other voices you'll see out there in comics, but we are on our way, and we're going to get better. Naturally, as you can tell, the focus has been sort of on survival at the moment, but when we get past this, we get through the survival section here, everything lightens up. We can start participating in other people's Indiegogos again. We can start participating in GoFundMes and get you more content. So we will be back and active and getting a better site and a better YouTube channel. And we will definitely always be grateful to everyone who helped us get there. So, Steve, any last words you want to sign out with?
Just want to say that from the bottom of my heart, I would really appreciate anybody that can help with the cause. While it doesn't directly affect me, I know that you are somebody who is worth investing in, and I'm really pulling for you to come up with the money needed. I know that my fiance and we have given to the cause. I'm doing what I can on my end to try to help promote things, but really pulling for you. Always a supporter of Critical Blast and what we do here, and with the donations of others and the kind-hearted spirit, I feel that we can get you through this, and I'm looking forward to an exciting future for both criticalblast.com and for my debut novel, Bulletproof.
We're definitely going to make that happen for Bulletproof. Like I said, as soon as we get through here, we're going to be pushing hard on the promotion on that one, get that Indiegogo up. We're going to have some levels on that one, people. We're going to have like a special cover for people who hit the higher tier on that one. So we're going to announce that as we get more information on it and we get it all set up. Just got to get through this week, get through this month, and after that, the sky is the limit. And if you like what you heard tonight, definitely check out our podcast, available at any of your podcast favorite locations. We are the Critical Pod Blast, and you can hear Steve talk about his more thoughts on Superman, as well as his foray into Apex Legends.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing more thoughts on both of those topics and many more topics as what strikes me. I know I have a new episode discussing Apex Legends, diving deep into the character called Lifeline. That should be up Saturday with a companion article on criticalblast.com.
Fantastic. Steve, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll set this up again. If everybody liked it, let us know. We liked it, so we're going to do it anyway, you know?
Yeah, why not?
Hey, Troy Reiser, thanks for coming by here, man. Good to see you in the chat. Troy would be a great person to get on here, too, sometime. Troy is a very knowledgeable person in comics and all around everything else. Troy's a smart guy, and I always appreciate getting his input. He inspires me to follow certain paths and avenues of investigation. In fact, Troy was the one who got me into Nikola Tesla years and years ago, and that Nikola Tesla research is what got me to finally get this story, Bully Pulpit, in the Destroyer, because Tesla's theories figure into this largely. Good night, everybody. Thank you for coming by. Definitely hit that GoFundMe link at the bottom of the description there, and we will be back tomorrow. Steve, thanks for coming, man.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.